All right, what's up, guys? Brian here, and this is my GFW Impact Wrestling review for last night's episode. So let's get right into it. Last night's episode had was pretty much based around the world title picture. We had Eli Drake, the new GFW Global Champion, along with his tag team partner Chris Adonis. They came out. Eli Drake cut a promo about how it took him, that he's mad that it took him 14 years to finally win a world championship, stuff like that. He would be interrupted by Johnny Impact, who made his debut last week in that Gauntlet for the Gold that saw Eli Drake become the new GFW Global Champion. They then would be interrupted by Eddie Edwards, also another participant in that Gauntlet for the Gold from last week. Basically, both Johnny Impact and Eddie Edwards made it very clear that they wanted to be first in line for an opportunity at that championship. Jim Cornette would come out and make a tag team match for the main event with some huge stipulations. He would make it Johnny Impact and Eddie Edwards taking on Eli Drake and Chris Adonis, with the stipulations that if Johnny Impact or Eddie Edwards scored the victory, then they would be first in line for an opportunity and a shot at that GFW Global Championship. However, on the flip side, if Eli Drake scored the victory in that match, then he would not have to defend the title against either one of them. So that was the main event, and I'll get into that in just a moment. We started off, or the opening match was with OVE. OVE, Ohio versus Everything. They took on Fallah Bahh and Mario Bocara. A good showing by OVE as they defeated Bahh and Bocara. However, I think it's going to take some time for them to. I mean, they've won their, they've been winning their matches, but I want to see them when they're in a match against, like the tag team champions, LAX, and see how well they handle themselves against LAX. So, I think it's going to take time for them to build, get some great momentum, but they have been really good recently. Let's see. We did have a couple of segments throughout Impact last night. One with Jim Cornette, Moose, and EC3. That would end up with Jim Cornette telling EC3 that he's going to be defending his grand championship against Phantasma Jr. I believe it's going to happen next week. They didn't really say when it was going to happen. They just said it was going to that it was going to be a match. We had some segment involving Allie and Taryn Terrell that ended up with Taryn attacking Allie when she asked her why she was being mean to Gail Kim. We had a Karen Jarrett, Sienna, Taryn Terrell segment that led to Karen Jarrett making a tag match for next week with Sienna teaming up with Taryn Terrell to take on Gail Kim and Allie. And she kind of teased that there's going to be some kind of stipulation in that match, so it'll be interesting to see what happens and what kind of, if there is any stipulations as far as that match is concerned. Let's see. We saw a segment with the whole Grado staying in the country. Of course, last week, Laurel Van Ness proposed to Grado. This week, they showed us a clip of, Grado, Laurel Van Ness, Joseph Park planning the wedding. And then come to find out that Laurel Van Ness is from Canada, so that kind of puts a damper on Grado staying in the country. And then we had, I mentioned that OVE defeated Falaba and Mario Bokara. We saw the return to the ring in about 8 years of Petey Williams. He defeated Caleb Conley. Of course, Petey Williams made his return at Destination X 2 weeks ago, helping Sanjay Dutt to retain the X Division Championship. And that led that whole situation. After the match, Trevor Lee, who was in the corner of Caleb Conley, he would get in that. He would attack Petey Williams. This would bring out Sanjay Dutt for the save, and this led to a tag team match being made for next week, with Sanjay Dutt teaming up with Petey Williams to take on Caleb Conley and Trevor Lee. Oh, what else? We saw Richard Justice, standby wrestler Richard Justice. Sorry about that, guys. He would take on Congo Kong, and Congo Kong actually absolutely just in short fashion defeated Richard Justice. What else? We had Low Ki. I know I said in my last week's episode or last week's review that Low Ki no longer a part of GFW. I believe there's a couple of episodes that they taped that might be the last appearance for Low Ki. And he was actually victorious in his match against James Storm on last night's episode. I thought it was a pretty good match. However, of course, with LAX being there and Low Ki being in LAX got involved. The other members, I should say, got involved. Santana would hit James Storm with the tag team title belt, as the referee was distracted by Conan, and this allowed Low Ki to hit the Warriors away to score the victory. And then, of course, that brings us to the main event, which was Eli Drake, the GFW Global Champion, teaming up with Chris Adonis to take on Johnny Impact and Eddie Edwards, with those stipulations that I named earlier. And this was actually a pretty good main event. I mean, it wasn't nothing really spectacular. I just thought it was a really good main event. Like I said, nothing really spectacular. Eli Drake scored the victory in this one. So he defeated Eddie Edwards in this matchup. So that means that he doesn't have to defend his title against either one of them. Afterwards, Lashley, Dan Lambert, America's Top Team, they would come out. They would start talking. Dan Lambert, I should say, started talking. I know earlier in the show I forgot to mention this, but they kind of questioned if Lashley's going to quit wrestling. They asked that question: is Lashley going to quit wrestling to focus more on MMA? So we'll see what happens with that, but that's all part of the storyline with Lashley and America's Top Team and Dan Lambert wanting him to quit wrestling and focus on MMA and stuff like that. They came out, got on the mic saying about, that, these are what you call wrestlers and you call yourselves champions. Jim Cornette would come out, basically tells Lashley that if any member of America's Top Team gets involved in that, or touches the ring or gets inside that ring and touches any of the superstars, that Lashley would be suspended and that he would miss Triple Mania. Of course, Triple Mania happened, this past weekend. And so this was in advance. And Lashley basically calmed down everybody. And then Jim Cornette would announce that next week, Eli Drake will defend the GFW Global Championship against the man that defeated Lashley at Destination X, Matt Sydal. So next week, Matt Sydal with a huge opportunity at the Global Championship against Eli Drake. Who knows? Will we see a new champion crowned? Who knows? We'll have to wait and see next week. But overall, my thoughts on this episode of Impact last night, I thought it was an okay show. I didn't think it was a good show. I didn't think it was a bad show. I just thought it was okay. Not a lot of stuff with the exception of maybe the main event and, everything based around the world title picture and stuff like that. I'm really intrigued with some of these storylines, like the whole Lashley, America's Top Team, GFW. Is Lashley going to quit, give up wrestling to focus on MMA? Is he going to give up MMA to focus on pro wrestling? I'm kind of intrigued a little bit on that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next few weeks going further. But I thought it was an okay show last night. So with that being said, if you guys watched last night's Impact, let me know what you guys thought of it in the comments below. And what do you think is going to happen as far as some of these storylines are concerned. So with that being said, this has been my review of what took place on last night's GFW Impact. As always, I am Brian, and thank you for watching.